you believe that Vice President Kamala Harris is only on the ticket because she is a black woman?
Well, I can say no. I think it's maybe a little bit different. So I've known her a long time indirectly, not directly very much. And she was always of Indian heritage, and she was only promoting Indian heritage. I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black.
Yes, she turned black. That was Donald Trump at the National Association of Black Journalists annual convention in what was a disaster of an interview by any objective measure. There were a lot of parts. There was a reiteration of the black jobs line to many gasps. There was also the reiteration of the line that he has been the best president for Americans since Abraham Lincoln. So the fact that we're not showing you that part should tell you what a disastrous showing this was for the former president, Donald Trump. That part of questioning whether or not Vice President Kamala Harris is in fact black. Just up top, let's say, she is black, she is biracial. Her father is Jamaican and her mother is Indian. So there you go. You can be two things. I'm Chinese and Italian. You don't know how to hate on me. You can use both. But anyway, let's watch the complete exchange from that interview. Take a look.
Some of your own supporters, including Republicans on Capitol Hill, have labeled Vice President Kamala Harris, who is the first black and Asian American woman to serve as vice president and be on a major party ticket, as a DEI hire. Is that acceptable language to you? And will you tell those Republicans and those supporters to stop it?
How do you define DEI? Go ahead. How do you define
diversity, equity, inclusion?
Okay, yeah, go ahead. Is that what your definition?
That is
give me a definition then. Would you give me a definition of that? I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black. So I don't know, is she Indian or is she black?
She is always identified as a black woman.
I respect either one. I respect either one, but she obviously doesn't, because she was Indian all the way, and then all of a sudden she made a turn and she became a black person.
Just to be clear, sir, do you believe that
I think somebody should look into that too when you ask, continue in a very hostile, nasty tone.
It's a direct question, sir. Do you believe that Vice President Kamala Harris is a DEI hire, as some Republicans
I really don't know. I mean, I really don't know. Could be.
There it was, everybody. That was the expanded thoughts. Again, birtherism in reverse, outfitted for the year 2024. Donald Trump now claiming Kamala Harris not black enough. And as I saw one person say, the way he says black should be illegal. Why does it sound so weird coming out of his mouth? But Cenk, I'm gonna kick it to you. First, Obama was so black that he was not even born in this country. Now Kamala Harris, not black enough. She's been Indian this whole time. Now she wants to be black.
Surprised he didn't say she's from Norway, or China.
Puerto Rico.
So guys, there's a lot of different parts of this story, and I think it's very interesting. Might even determine elections in some ways. So I'm gonna get to my thesis in a second on whoever plays identity politics loses. But first, on the comments. Look, Donald Trump is such a maniac that you lose track of the maniacal things he says that would eliminate any other politician. In the midst of the videos that we just showed you, he said, I didn't know she was black. Really? You didn't know she was black at all until a couple of years ago. You never even heard that. You thought Kamala Harris is an Indian lady who wound up defeating me on the ticket when she was the vice president. And then when she's vice president, oh my God, it turns out she's black. I didn't know that. Really? Really? Okay, he says such crazy things. And we just let it go because we assume, yeah, of course, the Republican nominee is a lunatic. The Republicans know that, Democrats, everybody knows that, and we just move on with our lives. Okay, now in terms of like, is she Indian, is she black? Why is this that complicated? She's both. Come on, your little mind can handle that, right? Now look, I know there's political reasons why he's doing it, and I'm gonna get to that, but okay, I mean, just like Franny, my kids are half Asian, half Turkish. Are they Chinese or Turkish? They're pretending to be Chinese, and then they turn Turkish. Okay, hey, maybe they were talking to their Turkish relatives, And they were, empathizing with them and relating to them by talking about their Turkish heritage. And they were talking to other Chinese people, and they were talking, relate to them on being Chinese because they're both. It's not that hard to understand. So guys, pull this picture up because I went down this rabbit hole. They say that Kamala Harris's dad is actually Irish. That's her dad. That's her dad. He ain't Irish, he's Jamaican. There's white people in Jamaica, right? So that's why I pulled up the picture. I was like, wait, is he? Okay, he's not.
Right. That's Donald Harris, by the way, everybody. Pretty handsome guy. But there's more I want to dig into, Cenk, on this conspiracies. Because let's just, before we fully jump in, let's just go to Laura Loomer, who of course is like hook, line, and sinker all in. She's not black, and actually pulled up Kamala Harris's birth certificate, because again, we're back here, and highlights, Donald Berkeley, not black. She says, she said this is proof that he's not black because he's Jamaican. She says, see Kamala Harris's birth certificate below, which I have obtained. Nowhere in her birth certificate does it say she's black or African. Kamala is a liar. Donald Trump is correct. Kamala Harris is not black and never has been. Then she contradicts herself and she's like, okay, Kamala Harris is the daughter of Donald J. Harris, who was born in Jamaica, and Shamala Gopalan Harris from India. And then of course Trump shared that and all of this, but it is, people were going with him on this. And by the way, Cenk, before we get too deep into the reactions to it, Trump thought he crushed the NABJ conference. Look, he truthed this right after it. He said the questions were rude and nasty, often in the form of a statement, but we crushed it. Oh my God, the spin, there's no spin. It's impossible to spin this. Again, people were actively groaning, right? This is I don't know, Cenk, who lied to him? Like, we've all done gigs that were like, I'm not the right fit for this, but someone clearly lied to him about why he was even there in the first place and definitely didn't prep him. And by the way, he's referring to Rachel Scott, who's the ABC News reporter there, who was the host of the event, and she opened in part because of the pushback that NABJ got for even having Donald Trump there because of all the things he has said about Black Americans and all the racist things that he has done. And she just brought receipts. She was like, "Why should you be here? Even though you have called, Black prosecutors animals and thugs, on and on and on. Even though you questioned Barack Obama's birth in this country and American citizenship, on and on and on." And he just, Cenk, you saw it. He couldn't get over it for the entire interview.
Hey, don't scroll away. Come back. Because before the video continues, we just want to urge you to lend your support to TYT. You power our honest reporting. You do it at tyt.com/team, and we love you for it. Yeah, so look, I have some authority on this issue, of course, since I'm Mr. Jamaica. Look, I didn't want to bring it up, but it is in the news. So seriously, I dated a Jamaican woman for over 4 years. I kid around about it because she won Miss Jamaica. I mean, did I say that out loud? Anyway,
wow, that's huge.
Yeah, well,
I definitely would brag about that.
Okay, well, thank you.
On national news.
Yeah, well, there you go, because it's so pertinent to the story. Okay, but seriously, I think it's so hilarious that Laura Loomer is like, on her birth certificate, it doesn't say she's black. It says she's Jamaican. Got her. That's kind of like saying, on their birth certificate, it doesn't say Asian. It says Japanese. Got her. What are you talking about? Japanese are generally speaking Asian. Jamaicans are generally speaking black. So this is not complicated. I mean, this is absurd. So why are they doing it? Now we get to the interesting part. So they have a couple of political reasons why they do it. And remember, they ran this exact model in 2016 and did win. So don't get overconfident about, it's definitely not going to work. It depends on how you react to it. So my theory is, that American people generally speaking, do not like identity politics. And they don't like it if they're white, they don't like it if they're black, etc. Do some love it? Oh, of course, on both sides, right? But I think the great majority of the American people hate it. So if the Democrats go out and react to this with, oh, Kamala Harris is a black woman, you have to vote for her because she's black. Now, they never say it quite like that, but do they heavily imply it? Often, yes, okay? If they do that, I think they lose. But if they don't do that, and Kamala Harris didn't do that, she reacted really well to this, and she kind of laughed it off, and I think that's the right strategy, and make him look like a fool, etc. And it's the Republicans playing identity politics going, oh, she's not black, and she's this, and she's that, and you shouldn't vote for her because of DEI, and because of black, and because of women. They're just alienating voters. They're just throwing away voters. Let them, just hand them rope, okay? Hand them rope.
Yeah.
And so, look, a couple of more things on this. Why are they doing it? They want to do it so that, number one, they'll confuse some people, right? Because the average person isn't into politics that much. They only see headlines, etc. And will it work on some small subsection of people? It actually will. They'll go, I don't know, I heard in the news that she wasn't black. I don't know, because they just saw a headline for a second. But that's not a huge group of people, it is some. But more importantly, they're trying to paint her as a phony, right? Does Kamala Harris do what they call code switching, right? Where she speaks in a certain way in front of one group and sometimes differently in front of another group? Yes, I think she does, okay? I think she should keep that to a minimum. Now, having said that, do I speak differently sometimes in front of different people? Of course, I speak differently in front of my mom than I do in front of my friends when we're playing football, okay? I speak differently in front of maybe a Turkish crowd, and I'm gonna try to relate to them in some way, and a non-Turkish crowd. It's on and on. This is normal, but you don't want to seem like a phony, and you don't want to fall into any of these traps. So Kamala Harris should just be who she is. She doesn't have to be any particular way. There is no such thing as being black characteristically. Like, okay, you're only black if you do this, this, or this. Or if you do that, you're not black. If you speak this way, you're not black. That's nonsense. Let the Republicans make those stupid ass points, deflect, laugh at it, mock them, but do not fall into the trap of getting into a thing of, no, you gotta vote for me based on my ethnicity or my gender, etc. That's what happened last time in 2016, and that's part of why the Democrats lost. So far Kamala Harris, I think, has handled it really well, and I'm thrilled to see it. But it's not as open and shut as we like to think, because we think it's so unbelievably absurd.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, and I have a little bit of a different take, but I think that more broadly, what this display was by Donald Trump was racist. It was race policing. It was questioning people's identities. And on top of that, he layered it in again with all the kinds of sleights of hand that he's shown to the black community, boasting about being as good as Abraham Lincoln, talking about black jobs. And then when he was asked to define it, he was like, it's a job that if you're, when a person has a job, and he just couldn't. So it's like, he has nothing for the black community, despite the small percentage points that he was gaining with them, earlier on in this election when Joe Biden was still in. He has lost that, and I think he demonstrated that. So I think more broadly, Cenk, it's like, yeah, Americans don't like identity politics, but they also, more than that, they don't like the hate. They don't like anyone who's gonna be nasty, and especially about someone's identity. And I think that give Americans a little bit of credit on that. Like, we don't like, racial animosity out and out. His base loves it. I mean, anyone who's wearing khakis with a tiki torch, like, they absolutely eat that stuff up. But let's just put up some of his bleats recently. Crazy Kamala saying she's Indian, not black. This is a big deal, stone cold phony. She uses everybody, including her racial identity. Then posting a family photo of her in traditional Indian, I think it's a sari or a bindi, saying, thank you, Kamala, for the nice picture you sent from many years ago. Your warmth, friendship, and love of your Indian heritage are very much appreciated. This crap is not going to fly. This will not endear him to, definitely not black Americans, certainly not South Asian Americans, but also I think generally white Americans who don't identify with some of the grossest parts of Trump's, let's call it what it is, racism. I do want to, however, move to the response from the right, because JD Vance was like, oh, it was a joke, it's great, it's funny. Anyway, JD Vance is absolutely on board, he has to be. But here is Tom Cotton attempting to explain away this performance at the NABJ.
So I don't know, is she Indian or is she black? You can defend those comments tonight?
And he also said either is fine, both is fine. He loves African Americans, he loves Indian Americans, he loves all Americans. The point is that we don't know where she stands politically because she spent her entire life as a dangerous San Francisco liberal.
Yes, refocusing on the real identity to be upset about the San Francisco liberal. Cenk, at least that's a little bit more like, okay, we're getting her on place and political like bent. That's good. That's a step up. But others were not even able to do that. Here's a pundit, Scott Jennings, who just, I think, spoke some truth here.
First of all, it almost sounded like he'd been thinking about this for a long time and he'd rehearsed it in his head and then he finally came out with this new line of attack. But why?
I don't know if I agree with that. Look, first of all, I think he deserves some points for showing up at this thing and giving it a go. Where's Kamala Harris today? Not there. But that having been said, he did crap the bed today. The only question is whether he's going to roll around in it or get up and change his sheets.
What do you think, people? He's gonna roll around. He just did. Cenk, he tripled down. I think what's amazing now that Joe Biden is out of the race is that we see so clearly how much Donald Trump is losing it and how much he is incapable of making the most minor pivot to make himself slightly more palatable to the exact communities that he needs to be, right? Suburban women, African-American voters, and he's incapable of doing that. Again, regurgitating the same lines that he's been reamed for in the past. Before I kick it to you, I just wanna, look, former Trump administration official Omarosa, who's now been speaking out against him, and truly maybe one of my favorite former Trump officials, had this to say on CNN about how Trump himself has used his own identity and actually lied about his identity to get ahead. Take a look.
I want to get you back in, and I want you to respond as well, Bruce, to this point. Yeah. But I do want to play a clip from back in 2019, which predated, by the way, this discussion of when she announced her heritage. Listen to this.
I'm Black,
yeah,
and I'm proud of being Black.
Absolutely.
And I was born Black, I will die Black. And I'm proud of being Black. And I'm not gonna make any excuses for anybody because they don't understand.
That's right. Omarosa, I wonder what your reaction has been to this statement that she's only pandering for political benefit.
Well, I think I probably know Donald better than anyone on this panel. Forgive me if anyone thinks differently. But I recall in his book, The Art of the Deal, Laura, when Donald Trump identified himself as Swedish, right? Because he didn't want to acknowledge that his father was German and his mother was Irish. And he thought that that would play better to those who were patronizing his businesses. So can we call the question his past of self-identifying as first Swedish, then German, and then Irish whenever it's convenient? Donald doesn't know the difference between ancestry and race.
And that checks out. According to Axios, shortly after World War II, Donald Trump's father, Fred, falsely claimed the family was Swedish, hiding their German heritage to avoid any problem selling apartments to Jewish customers. The Boston Globe reported that last year, Donald Trump was still claiming Swedish heritage as late as his '87 book, Art of the Deal, in which he writes that his grandfather came to the US from Sweden. Cenk, every accusation is a confession. The man has literally lied about his own white heritage in order to get ahead.
Yep. So look, this is a trap for either the Republicans that they just stepped into for themselves or for the Democrats, depending on how people react. So it's not wrong that that from time to time Democratic politicians pander, to say the least. So you remember Hillary Clinton with the, oh, I carry hot sauce in my bag. No, you don't. Okay, and that's really embarrassing. Don't say that, right? And she was trying to relate to the African-American community, et cetera. Kamala Harris on Charlamagne tha God show, pretending that she listened to Snoop in college when he hadn't come out yet. Okay, so there's like, yeah, that, and I don't think that she's pretending to be Black. I think what she's doing is pretending not to have gone to really great schools and grown up in the environment that she did. It doesn't, there is no such thing as being Black right? Other than your actual race, right? So her race is definitely black. There's no question about that. And it bothers me when people imply and that being black means you come from a certain socioeconomic background or a certain educational background, or you speak a certain way, etc. No, there's a giant range within every race, ethnicity, religion, etc. So these are all absurd conversations, but the trap is one that is easy to fall into because it's when you say it, you're not wrong. So Francesca said earlier that what he said is racist, and it's kind of inarguably the definition, right? So I understand why you're saying that, but I'm super glad that Kamala Harris and her team are not saying that, because they want her to say that. Because the minute you say that, you fall into their trap. Because what you have to do in politics is get people to identify with you, right? You want to be relatable. You want to be on their side. You're the leader who's going to protect them versus, and so you have to be part of them. So when the Democrats say that someone is racist, what unfortunately a lot of people in this country hear is, you're racist. Now they shouldn't hear that. They're not talking about them, they're talking about Donald Trump. But unfortunately, it's like an emotional trigger that happens. That's how you lose an election. Don't do that. Whereas if you do the reverse and you go, look at Donald Trump trying to divide us on race. No, we're all Americans. And you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna unify us, because it isn't about whether you're black or Indian or both, which I am. It isn't whether you're white or this or that or whichever religion you are. It's about, do you have higher wages? Do you have health care? And are we gonna be united to fight against the powerful interests in Washington? I know she's not really gonna fight against the powerful interests, but it would be good rhetoric, right? And so that way the us becomes all middle class and poor and average Americans, as opposed to fighting on, okay, now black people come here and Indian people and then white people go here. You're gonna lose that one. Don't do that. And it doesn't play well. So don't give in to the temptation of calling it racist. Laugh it off, make fun of them, and then unite, and be the leader that they want you to be.
And to your point, that's exactly what she said. And we don't have this graphic, but she said, quote, "It was the same old show, the divisiveness and the disrespect. The American people deserve a leader who tells the truth, who doesn't respond with hostility and anger when confronted by the facts. We deserve a leader who understands our differences do not divide us. They're an essential source of our strength." You're getting some of that Obama-ness. And remember, Obama absolutely did not play into the fact that he was black or also white in Trump's terms, although he never accused him of being white.
If you enjoyed this video, that's because of our members. They make us independent, they make us strong, and they make us honest. Become a member today by hitting the join button below.